GM, Hot Takes and Cold Wallets, episode number 26. Juan and Nikita back in the house. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing good, doing good. It's good to be back. It's been a crazy time with lots of traveling, lots of conferences. Just I got back from Amsterdam Money 2020. That was a good time, and yeah, just good to be back.
Yeah, all good myself as well. Has been a pretty long day and week, I would say. But yeah, so far so good. Excited to be in another episode here, and also in a new day, mostly because tomorrow we have a pretty important worldwide event, I would say.
Yeah, we're doing this episode on Wednesday because tomorrow is Thursday and the World Cup will be kicking off at the same time we usually do the spaces. So we thought it might be a good idea to do it one day early and to it today. Nikita, can you give us a quick update or all the talk that were around the conferences that you guys were visiting in the past? You said Money 2020. You guys also had people at TwitchCon Europe. We talked about Digital Asset Summit in Canada last week, and the talks around different niches and industries around fintech and gaming and crypto. Do they like kind of have the same common threats in sense now with the AI rising of the scammers?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in the space. I mean, right now for example, we just came back from like I was saying, Money 2020, and there's a lot we were talking. It was very interesting because it was like a mix of all the crypto companies we normally speak to, and it was a lot of fintechs, a lot of like banks, credit unions. And what's interesting is it's kind of like the scammers have like incubated within the crypto space, I would say, and this is where they honed their strategies. And now it's spreading absolutely everywhere. Companies that before they'd see like, oh, maybe we get like 10 impersonators a week. Now it's 100 or 1,000 a week, right? It's just the volume has increased so much. All of the infra that the scammers have developed, and it really is infra. They have a business in that, on their side. They have a whole system of really how to set up all these scams, how to host them, how to spearfish somebody, how to crawl the internet, find all of the information about you to make the scam more convincing. All of this has been done. And so now this is heavily targeting a lot of these companies as well. And so they're seeing, what we've been seeing in crypto for a while is now happening across all of these different industries as well.
Do you think that they kind of use crypto as a playground to extract very quickly?
Oh,
and now
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. I just think that crypto was in a Wild West kind of situation for a while, and it still kind of is. And this is a lot of what we see just like happening here is that the attacks, they did get developed a lot in the crypto space, and then they get kind of adapted and used across these other industries. Just because there are a little bit more different like controls in other industries that you have to be a little bit the scammers have to adapt to a bit. In crypto, it's like, you get malicious transaction or you still are seed phrase and bam, like all the money's gone. If you get access to like a bank account, there is a bit more you have to do to really extract all the money, right? But I was actually talking to, a credit union, for example, and they were saying, they have transaction limits and this kind of stuff. It's only like a few $1,000s at a time you can transfer, but the scammer will literally sit on the call with like a senior citizen and literally guide them through like, hey, extract this much, wait a little bit, move some more money out. They'll call them again tomorrow, get them to move some more money out. And they just think they're just like investing into something or moving money somewhere. And so while those, it was just interesting that even while the, there's protections in place that say, oh, you can transfer max like $2,000 at a time, but then the user still loses like $100K. And it's because they get guided over a long period of time to extract all of these funds from them. And it's just crazy that, how much of trust the scammers are able to build up.
I think some companies actually, they kind of like have these circuit breakers or barriers in place now when you are on the phone and you're opening up their app. I've seen that from, I think Trade Republic was one, Revolut has one as well. Like they just displaying, hey, we're not on the phone with you. Like in case
Honestly,
you're talking
a lot
to
more should
someone.
build that.
Yeah, and you're just navigating the app or trying to like do like a deposit or whatever. Please don't do it because it's not us that is like trying to phone you.
I think that's really smart. I think it's a really good idea to like, that should be like a default in like every banking and financial app. It's just could be a good startup idea for someone, just like this as a service, I think it's a great idea.
Do you find it like more easy for you guys now positioning the brand of Chain Patrol, like the brand protection kind of thing? Had that become like more easier nowadays, or is it just like on the same level as it was before?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, look, like in crypto, we go to a lot of companies and it's like something new to them, right? They're aware of the very, very aware of the problem, but they're not so much aware of the solution. In other industries, everybody's aware of the solution. They all have brand protection solutions in place. They all have something that they're many even have brand protection teams built out internally, where it's like a whole team that handles this problem, plus external vendors. But what pretty much everybody we've talked to is finding is that vendors themselves right now are just struggling themselves with the volume of attacks that are happening. And a big part of this is that a lot of historical vendors have over-relied on manual staff to do the work. And I mean, we also have, threat hunters and reporting ops team at Chain Patrol. They're very well trained. They're really experts and specialists at what they do. But there is a baseline of automation and an engine that goes out and finds these threats, crawls different platforms, and is able to make our solution scalable. There's some customers, we're doing 1,000 takedowns a day for them. And that's just not feasible if you are a manual first approach versus kind of a engine first with, the human touch on top. It's a different way of building this kind of business. And that's, I don't know if I should call it secret sauce. It seems kind of obvious to me, but like the secret sauce is how do you make all of this work, and how do you make all of this, you can't go also too deep on the engineering side either, because you need the expert threat hunters to be the people that go out there and find what are the issues happening in the space right now, what are the latest threats, doing the research, and then informing our engineers on how do we make the latest, innovation, the latest update to our engine to really catch the latest scams.
Would you say, Nikita, they are basically worried about the similar things, or are they like in totally different bracket when it comes to like fintech or gaming?
Very similar
crypto?
Type of attacks. That's why our expansion is going really well right now. Is the end goal of the scammer is slightly different, but it's like 90% of the journey is the same. Somebody reaches out to you on email or phone or fake. Maybe the platforms are a bit different. Crypto companies are a lot heavier on Twitter or X. Traditional businesses, they see a lot more Facebook or Meta stuff coming up as well. It just depends where their audience is, right? The scammers go where the audience is. Influencers we work with, they get a lot. Like we have an influencer, we've done like like thousands of TikTok takedowns for them, like literally thousands over like under a year. So like it's kind of crazy the volume that people get targeted with. And so the scammers just they adjust to your audience, and they will target your community wherever they are, whether it's on Discord or Instagram or TikTok or any other platform.
Yeah, I think this has been proven over the past years, especially in crypto, that the scammers, they are quick to adapt. They're probably the fastest guys to adapt. Like if everyone is still trying to figure things out, they still have like they already have a game plan set up, and they know like, hey, we're gonna do this and that. And Discord allows us to do these kind of things.
Ahead. Yeah, they're a step ahead of everybody. The interesting thing too is like, us as security companies, like we have to build our own security protocols in place, make sure we don't get hacked, make sure we don't lose like customer data, make sure we don't get have compliance issues and all this other stuff. And it's all very important, but the scammers don't have any of these constraints. They're like, oh, latest greatest AI model came out, they don't need to check if it's safe to use, they just use it. So every time one of these labs drops a new model, like we have Fable 5, that just came out, like very excited to be using that. But every one of these models is a way for scammers to build an advantage. And there's many ways to get this model to do work for you. Like it's hard to get it, like, as a scammer to actually go and like, I don't know, autonomously scam someone, but they can just use it to build all their toolkit, and then the toolkit is the thing that they use because they don't need to run live agents. I don't think many of them are running, honestly, like live, I don't know, like a Claude session that is like actively scamming you. They just built all the tooling necessary to automate all of their processes, and that's where they're getting the value, is developing like really sophisticated scamming kits and wiring together their whole campaigns. And then they just still have people and to do the words, to do those kind of like final steps of like actually running the scam.
To me, this also enables more people to scam, because in the past, you needed to have some kind of like dev knowledge, or at least some fundamentals going down. You need to know what you're doing there. And nowadays you can just like plug it into an AI and give it some like false context and say, hey, I need this for
exactly
whatever. And then you build it around that.
And the scam kits themselves are very user friendly too. That's just like another point. Is like now the scam kits that we've seen, they're like anybody can use it without much instruction. They have like tutorials in there and stuff, and like very nice UIs. It's kind of crazy. It's like actually a good product. It's like actually a quality product. Like
yeah, we hate to say that, but
not to be an advertisement.
You gotta admit it sometimes, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, respect on them. You have to respect your adversary, right? That's an important part of this too, right? So yeah.
Yeah. Also, it would probably be pretty boring if we didn't have any other side to face.
Yeah.
Okay, Nikita, I wanted to talk to you about the Fable model. You just like mentioned it pretty briefly, and what I've seen like on the timeline yesterday was from the security guys. They were kind of disappointed with the Fable release, because they said like it's like a limited version of Mythos, and it's not like the NSA kind of level stuff that they wanted to be doing, but it was just giving them like, it was giving them excuses not to audit smart contract code, for example, and said like, hey, this has been flagged for cybersecurity and biology and stuff like that. And I've seen a few takes where people said like, yeah, I was expecting more of this model. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. I think right now, a lot of the AI labs need to be a little bit careful, because they don't want regulators to come down on them and say, hey, these models are like an existential threat, and they're like a super weapon that's going to get like unleashed on the internet, right? And I think that's what they have to do, and I think that's why they have to put so many guardrails in place. And sure, is it like frustrating as a security researcher? For sure. I mean, if you're a good security researcher, go and try and crack it. Like that's kind of your, that's part of the fun. But What I would say is just like with these models, I do understand why they're trying to be careful with it, just because the scammers will be there. They're like sitting there at the front line salivating at the latest model release, like, because if it could do all those things, before the smart contract researchers are going to get to it, all your contracts will be hacked already. Like if you like missed it by a day, you like, maybe you weren't paying attention, maybe you like, I don't know, like you missed the release by a day. Oh, there's a big hack in your contract already, because the attackers they're on top of this stuff. And so I understand why they have to be careful and responsible. I'm a fan of this kind of I would say approach. How to get, maybe there's this program they could do where they invite more security researchers in to play with the latest models. How to do this, tricky, because you don't want somebody to accidentally trying to, we've seen a lot of issues with people like distilling models too, of like just sending it tons of requests, getting their responses back and using it to train your own model. So it's a tricky situation to be in. But what I would say overall is that, one, it's a great coding model, so use it to improve the tooling you already have. Use it to build out monitors. One thing that we're finding, honestly, a ton of value ourselves from is the more surface area you have to cover, the more you need. You have a lot of edge cases and specific configurations and certain unique threats targeting a unique company or unique threats on a unique platform. And keeping a good eye on all of this is quite difficult. And we found a lot of success ourselves from having agents that do things like health checks, that like monitor the quality of protection for certain customers, that monitor, that look into, where there may be, like, they're almost like pen testing our own systems in some way, not like literally trying to hack it, but more finding like, okay, like we have tons of data and tons of metrics, way more than any human can reasonably. There's like dashboards within dashboards and metrics within metrics, like more than any human can reasonably consume and make a decision based on. But there are decisions to be made there. Every one of those pieces of data can actually improve how well we protect our customers. And that's where the agents are great. They can read, if you have 1 million dashboards, they'll read every single one of them, prioritize them, and put together a plan on like what is relevant to act on, right? And so I think this is where, especially Fable 5, it's like, it's even like they're taking further and further levels of having it be like more and more agentic. Give it like broader goals. Give it a goal of like, hey, like give it access to all of your different monitoring toolkits, of course, in a safe environment, but give it all the data. That's what we found to be well, is like give it as many eyes and ears as possible so it can ingest all the data from across the company, from all your monitoring tools, and feed that in there in a secure environment, and then let it reason with all of the data within its context and with that it can operate on. And then from there, it can make like really surprising insights for you where you're like, oh, there's a big gap here, there's a big issue here that you can improve, right? Because also, like, again, like Web3 security goes far beyond smart contracts now, right? It's smart contracts is important, but like, are you really keeping track of every alert that you get from your deployment monitoring queue? Probably not. Probably not. Like I know I know how much alerts engineers get. They can't read through every single one of them. Are you looking at all of your post-deploy logs? Are you looking at analysis of how interactions are happening with your smart contracts? You probably aren't, but these tools can, and so use them in that way, right? Think of it as like a person that's working on your team that has infinite time, right, to do work. And so when you start thinking about it in that way, you start to be able to do work that before just wasn't possible because of the constraints you have on like how much time and effort a person can put into something.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, like, I think the Fable model, when you asked it something, it could also like take a step back and take a model like right below the 5.0 one. It took like 4.8 to
Yeah.
complete a certain task, and I was wondering, like, does that maybe push some security people into like using less transparent models because it's not state of the art if you can't use the 5.0. You have to
I
like
think, yeah,
work
I
around a
mean,
bit.
that's the, yeah, that, I mean, there's I think two kind of like schools of thought happening in this area. One, like there's people that are like, I want the best latest thing, throw it at everything and have it do all the work. But you don't need Fable 5 to write your email for you, like, or this kind of stuff, we've told this to our own team, like for a little while everybody was on like 4.8, and it's like you don't need 4.8 for everything, right? And I think what Anthropic's trying to do here is try to do some orchestration for you. I think it would be good. Honestly, I haven't played with 5 enough yet, but I'm guessing there's probably ways to get it to like use a specific model all the time or most of the time, and then be more in control of when you switch it. Like our own agents, like when we were using 4.8, and others, like we have like a routing table that, depending on the task, there's a top agent that we use like Sonnet for, because the basic routing doesn't need the deep reasoning. It just needs to know, okay, I have all these things I can possibly do. Use Sonnet for that. It then does some routing. Then for a really complex task, it delegates it to 4.8. Opus, for other tasks, Sonnet continues doing it. And so there's kind of this like thing of like, who do you need for what kind of work, similar, like, you're not going to have your CISO go and do every task. You have different people with different level, like qualifying skills. And even then, like, funnily enough, skills, you can load different skill files into different models, right? And so like, that's another thing too. Like, I'm a big fan of this project, called GStack and GBrain. Gary Tan, Y Combinator's. He's like the president. He's the president of YC right now, and he built out this whole like insane layering infrastructure where there's skills and routing tables and pre-written piece of code that then route to other skills. But that's really how like a full model looks like. I think many people are kind of at this like still like level 1 of like, I have the biggest, best model and I just give it the job. But that's, I would say, like level 1 of like your development journey. Level 2, level 3 is like you're starting to build out your own orchestration that makes sense to your company, and to the type of work that you're trying to do, right? Because if you're trying to get something that, I don't know, just like parse it, like tries to find generic stuff on chain, you don't need 4.8 to run that. If you're just looking for certain codes and certain like similar signals, then all you need to do is run it through like a cheap model to start, get all your data, that data feed to the expensive model and have it reason on that. So that's I think what Anthropic's trying to do for you, because there have been a lot of complaints from companies now, right, where they're like, wait, we got like, I was just reading, there's a company that had like a $500 million, like literally 500 million bill, because they put literally zero restrictions. I literally just read this on Twitter, like, on X, like maybe an hour ago. So please fact check that. We need like a live fact check here or something. But it's believable. I could see that. I've heard similar, not maybe such insane numbers, but like in the many millions spent, and they're like, what actually impact happened because of this money that we spent right now? And there is impact, but maybe that same impact could have been spending, you could have spent $1 million instead of $5 million, right? And all you had to do was just switch the model that you're using, right? And so I think that's what like Anthropic's trying to do a bit there, because there is like a bit of like, backlash, I think, of just like companies, like users will just be like, oh, I want the best model, so take it to the max, and then the bills come back, and then their CFO comes yelling at you, and they're like, what the hell's going on? And then that could lead to legitimately like the company saying, hey, we're turning this off entirely. And Anthropic doesn't want that. They want people to keep using this in the best way they can use it, not just like, dump all the cash in there that you possibly can.
I like to think of it in like analogies, and you can, if you want to go from point A to point B, you can take like the subway or the Toyota. You don't need to take the Ferrari all the time, right?
Yeah.
If it's just from getting from A to B, you can still like use something else and achieve the same result without like blowing up your company's credit card or whatever. So that's great. Nikita, one thing that wasn't AI related this week was the Humanity Protocol hack. And I have some notes on that. So from the screenshots that we have, basically what was happening was they compromised the developer machine. And on that developer machine, there were 7 keys associated to the protocol. You gotta keep that in mind, like 7 keys, from Gnosis safe signers to Ethereum signers and BSEC signers. It was like insane, and this is something that you don't see all the time. And apparently they did this during like the compromise or an upgrade hack that they had in June 2025, like a year ago, and they saved the keys on that machine, and that machine was compromised, and like the whole set of signers get compromised on one single device. What's your first reaction when you see something like this?
Dev compromise after dev compromise after dev. There's like a this like Steve Ballmer meme from like way back when he did like there was this like Microsoft keynote and he went crazy. He's like developers, like he just says developers on. We need like a repeat of that, but for like security and phishing. Like there they were talking about like integrations and building out their like community. And but honestly, I think this is literally what keeps happening over and over again. Dev gets compromised, too many permissions, too many keys, and they go in there. But that's a tricky thing, right? Like having good permission structure around your dev team is one of the hardest things to do, right? Because too much permissions around your dev slows development to a crawl, and nobody wants development to be at a crawl, so they puncture holes all over their system, or they don't have the defenses in the first place, and so I'm curious, was it like an what was it, an interview like that they did, or like how
they downloaded malware. They downloaded malware, and then they
same
got like
thing.
infected.
This is over and over again, it's insane. Like something that we need to keep reminding to people: one, don't do interviews on your own machine, right? Do not do or like on your company machine. It's fine if you want to go work at another company. Don't do the interview on the company machine, right? Like that's one of the most critical things, because it's just a standard flow now, right? For dev interviews, it's you get the GitHub repo, you need to download it, you need to run the code to do your coding interview. That's like a normal flow. Again, we need to denormalize that flow. A lot of companies will instead, what they'll do is, they'll give you like a sandbox environment or something else like that to do the interview in. But even that is going to be kind of tricky because you might not notice that it downloaded something or it executed some code on your machine. It's like very, very like thin line of the dev is not a security expert. That's the other thing I think we need to like yell from the top of the mountains is like, devs and security people are not the same people. Just because you're technical doesn't mean you know anything about security. There's tons of developers that zero clue about security, and so again, don't assume your devs know the best practices of what they should be doing. You need to teach them, you need to enforce them. I think we need closer ties between security teams and eng teams, where security teams are one, themselves becoming more informed of what developer lifecycle looks like and what shipping code looks like, what are all the latest tools that developers use, and then giving them some guidelines of how do you use this in a secure way without this completely obliterating your shipping speed, right? Because if it slows down shipping too much, developers will riot and a product will riot, and then sales will be pissed off. And so like nobody in your like getting buying into security across your org is a challenge in and of itself, right? And so but there's lots of tooling to do this now, right? There's for example, just like, I don't know, like have basic, code scanning stuff that goes in your GitHub repos, right? Because we've seen a lot of stuff where like malicious code goes into the GitHub repo, makes it past the release process, and now you have malicious code in production on your own site. We've seen a lot of front-end compromises like this, right? I think that that's the other really, really tricky part. In my own mind, I've fallen into this trap in the past. I've learned better now, and so like we've cleaned up a lot of that since. But it's easy to think that like, oh, front end code is not like as important as back end code because, well, it's the front end. It's like the HTML, it's the CSS. Like it's not like your core back end system that has access to the database. But if it's front end code, it means it runs on your user's device. It means if the user visits your site, they run that front end code. And if there's malicious injections in there, now it's running on all of your users' devices, And so, again, like not to like beat a dead horse, but Bybit, exactly how that happened, malicious code in the safe UI, right? And so, yeah, that's developers getting compromised. It's going to be a story. That's going to be the one thing I think we're going to hear for like couple of years, to be honest. I think before like all the things are in place that like will really help. Related to that is all the supply chain compromises too. People love using like a million different like packages like in dev world. It's just normal. Like, oh, like devs are so lazy. It's funny. They'll be like, oh, like I need to like, there's literally there's packages that will tell you if like a number is an even number or something. And I'm like, why does this exist? You literally can do it in code, but there's like literally a repo with like millions of downloads of like, is this an even number? I'm like, is this a joke? Like, do people install this as like a joke? Like people can't legitimately be using this. But then even just more basic things like, date libraries, all this, like everything that you don't want to hand code, people are just like, well, grab a library for it and do that. Coding agents might actually help with that a little bit because now you can just have the agent code that up for you instead of pulling an external library, which might actually be a good thing overall because you will start to limit external dependencies a bit, which might be actually a good thing overall because, like, again, if devs are lazy and, you just have to assume devs are lazy. That's like a default like assumption, and that's a good thing because they want to solve things like we want to like as devs, we want to solve I'm a dev. So, we want to solve things quickly and efficiently, we don't want to spend like a million hours rooting around in there. If there's like, I need to get something done and there's an off the shelf ready solution for me to get done, I would prefer to do that. Right. And, point being is sometimes now I don't have to look towards that off-the-shelf solution because the agent will just write that for me. That's -1 dependency that can potentially compromise our whole system, which I think that's like a nice benefit we'll see of like agents is like a little bit less like supply chain sprawl.
Devs are definitely lazy. Like if you think about it, the admin hot wallet key getting compromised, 3 ETH signer for Gnosis Safe getting compromised, and 3 BSC signers for Gnosis Safe on one single machine. Like,
yeah,
I just want to stress the fact here that like you can set up a multisig all you want. If you have every single signer on a single device, you will get wrecked with that. Like,
yeah,
you can just use like a MetaMask for it, to be honest. Like you don't even need a safe. If you store them all on the same machine, it's like
exactly.
So.
It's like what's the point of a multi-sig? The keys are all in the same. That's hilarious.
It's like a hardware wallet with all the different like seed phrases like on your screen.
Yeah, exactly. Just like or like in your like photos library or something. Yeah. One thing actually related to this, I think users of protocols need to start like demand like we got to the point where like audits are pretty normalized and it's expected that you have an audit. There's an interesting thing, SEAL, like the Security Alliance, they're working on something called like certifications that I think are pretty interesting. And the goal of that is to like go a little bit beyond, the smart contract audits. And they're working with like other companies. They're not, some of them, I think they're doing some first party ones, but their goal is mostly to like find good auditors, not of smart contract code, but of like processes that you have, right? Like, how do you store your private keys? How are they split up? Are you using like are you using the best practice around private key storage, around code deployment, this kind of stuff? And I'm hopeful that in like a year or so, maybe we'll get this stuff like more normalized, where like, if you're going to deploy funds into a protocol, not only are you going to expect a smart contract audit, but you're also going to expect this like audit of, are they following overall development best practices? Because the smart contract could have 0 bugs, but if the private keys are leaked, it doesn't matter, right? So
yeah, I was gonna ask, like, if you would suggest basically to like do an audit from time to time to where the keys are stored, hey, who is in charge of the seed phrases and the backups and all that.
Yeah, one, you have to have this mapped out somewhere internally. Again, having anything mapped out, again, if somebody gets access to that could be almost like, dangerous in itself. But it's far more dangerous not having that, like, because then you don't know. And then you can't make improvements to it, right? Like, I think literally if that team's like, founders and others literally sat down and were like, hey, where are our private keys? Oh, they're there. Wait, they're all in that dev's device. That's a problem. Like, let's fix that immediately. But I'm guessing
that guy isn't working for us anymore.
yeah. Like, my guess is just like it's again, it's like there's a big cultural thing of just like to give devs, engineers as much freedom as possible. And it is overall like a good thing, and that's what makes startups move fast. But then that's also what leads to these kind of gaps in security. And so I would just say that freedom is good with it, but you need some like sanity checks and make those sanity checks regular. And do security. I think security trainings for new people you onboard are also very important. Because also like a lot of companies hire the engineers sometimes within crypto, but a lot of times it's engineers outside of crypto. Mm-hmm. And the engineer coming in might, just there to them, like, oh, seed phrase is like an API key. And it's kind of okay if you have you still need good API key storage that can lead to tons of issues on its own. But, you're just like threat model in your mind of like, how bad can things happen if I leak, like, I don't know, like my API key to some like app I use? It's like more limited than like, oh, you leak your, like, because if you think of like the seed phrase as an API key, and that's what the engineer might be thinking of it as, then they're like, oh, it's not that, it's like bad, but it's not like that bad. So like, but no, it's like world-ending, apocalyptic level bad. So like, that's how you need to think about it. And so that's more security trainings for engineers are needed, especially if they come outside of crypto.
Juan, do you think there's any going back from this, like, we messed up moment for them? Like, they lost like $30 million. Is there any way to reinstate any trust in them?
Yeah, actually, so prior to that there were like some influencers claiming to have like participated in the IPO or like in the token sale, so on, and doing like 100x. And they instantly after that, I saw like a 90% drop of their token price. So how do you build up that confidence with users using your protocol? I would say it's pretty hard. If you already have like those kind of people bragging out and probably KOLs that you paid, it's hard to pretty much bring them back with only money. You need to do something, first of all, that is needed, something that you need to use, like, I don't know, you need to use bridges from time to time. If you're in crypto, you probably know how to use different DeFi protocols to interact, and you have like your money in the space. If you like build like main and really important infrastructure within the crypto ecosystem, you can pretty much regain users from that. But if you have like really good competitors, that is something that happens right now in crypto a lot, those users are probably not going to come back. So that's, I think, why we emphasize so much about like growing means having not only like a good marketing strategy, but also like a good security strategy, and try to have like both things happen at the same time. Like, you can expect to be growing without receiving like more impersonation attempts, and also people trying to break your contracts and all the different things that you have built. And yes, as mentioned, this case was like more like an operation security compromise. but all these different companies are being targeted across all different kind of all different kind of ways. So yeah, really important to see how pretty much you can get your security set up in a good place, in a good place as soon as possible, I would say.
Actually, one question, sorry, I have for you. Do you know if like there's been any recovery or like any amount of funds frozen out of this? Because every time we have a hack, we're like, what percent did any protocols?
They said they were looking into reimbursement, but like people on the timeline were also like speculating, like, hey, your vesting was about to be done in like 6 days or something. This looks a little shady that you got like every single compromised key on a single machine and all of that. And if you look into ethos scores, which we also had on the show like weeks before, they have like the worst score ever on an ethos protocol. so it's kind of like, hey, what are you guys doing over there? But hey,
there used to be like an achievement badge for that, like you get like on like Steam achievements or something, like
most
bottom of the pile,
most untrusted profile. Nice. Oh man. Something that's also it's also been brought up on the timeline, I think today actually, was someone from, I think it was from Gnosis as well. They said that Rabby is doing all kinds of tracking. So I don't want to make this like a flame on Rabby. I don't want to make this like a dunk on Rabby. But I just want to highlight here that like the wallet software, the wallet application that you are using is kind of very sensitive with the data in between. And a lot of these wallet apps do have tracking mechanisms installed. Some use like Google, some even like send your data to more tracking services, which they then can do analytics on and stuff like that. Nikita, I just wanted to ask you about this. Maybe this is like a feature for a future episode, like a whole episode around like privacy and wallets. What's your take on all these like tracking in general, maybe when it comes to web and web3, and like they have your wallet address, they may know your token balances, and then they do all these kind of tracking, which is maybe a threat to privacy to some people.
Yeah, I do think there needs to, I think, privacy can be a competitive advantage, but you need to cater to the people that really care about privacy. I think the unfortunate thing is a lot of users just do not care at all, and the wallets, they have to fight on user experience and product quality. And it's very hard to make your product better if you're not allowed to see any usage data, anything like, how are you going to, all you have to go off is like if somebody chooses to complain or send you like a feature request. But most people don't speak up in that way. Like literally how product development works at like 99.9% of companies is through these analytics, right? These analytics is what helps improve the product, fix bugs. So I understand why they have it. I think it's important to have it. I think it would be good to let users like opt out of it, and have the ability to do that. But if a wallet, did the opposite, they did like opt in, like who's gonna opt into more tracking? Like when you make it an opt-in thing, it's kind of difficult. And again, like I mean, you could say there's like, I don't know, like evil defaults or something like that. There's like could be that, but like again, like this is like the standard across every app you use. Like if that, that wallet might not, even if the wallet didn't track you, your browser's tracking you, the extension sitting next to that wallet is tracking that wallet's usage, because when you go to a thing, it can see that you've like, there's an Ethereum injected. So, it knows you're using a wallet. It can also oftentimes see the network request. So it could see that, you made a transaction. So even like if the wallet isn't tracking you, I'd be curious, about the people that are complaining about like Rabby tracking them. I'd love to see what other extensions they have installed and like how much they know about, how much those extensions track them. And the fact that if Rabby had literally zero tracking, they'd still be getting tracked by all those other extensions they have. Now, at the same time, I think there should be a wallet out there that's like, hey, we are the wallet for privacy focused people. You want privacy? This is the wallet. Zero tracking, we don't log anything, and we still give you a good experience, and you can do whatever you want. We will have zero clue about what you did. I think that's a competitive advantage. but that's just like for many users, that is not the thing they're looking for. That's like near the bottom of the pile of the things they care about. They're like, the transaction snappy? Can I like does this work with all the dApps? Does it support all the networks? Does it hopefully not even have to think about networks and it like auto switches?
Does
that's
it give me points or an airdrop? Let's fucking go.
Yeah. Does it give me points on an airdrop? Like, and so when users ask about that, well, the only way you get those features is through analytics. And so not the only way, but I would say the faster way you get to like a better wallet experience. And so it's like, is it like, it's a choice for you. If you don't like the tracking, go find another wallet. Like, that's what I would say, I do hope there is a wallet that says like, takes the stance of like, we do no tracking. But honestly, for that, it's so difficult. Like, I've talked to other people that are like, yeah, like, if you talk to some deeper privacy researchers, like, yeah, you basically have to go from like the command line level if you really don't want any tracking. You opening your browser is tracking, like, so.
As you said, there are browsers who basically they claim to be like, hey, we are privacy focused and you do not get tracked as much as with other browsers. So
you would need to build up your whole stack. You need to like use the right operating system, use the right browser, then within that browser, use the right wallet, then you can have proper privacy. But if you're like sitting inside one of the standard browsers and you're complaining about your extension tracking you, I'm sorry, but like you have like, even if it did zero tracking, you're still being tracked. So like, what are you like? Build your privacy. If you're serious about like, again, not to dismiss privacy, I think it's very important. But if you're serious about privacy, you have to like build that stack up from the ground up. Don't just think your wallet switching like one thing on or off is going to solve all your problems.
So there are some apps out there, I think WalletBeat is one of them, who basically put wallets into scores and put them into different scoring tier systems. Do you think the data flow should be more visible, Nikita, in these wallets? Or is it like some kind of, it doesn't like matter for most of the people, so we don't display it at all?
It's tricky. It would be nice to see that, somewhere deeper in, like more transparency, I think is always good. Though like I hate it when like I can't see like what is happening behind the scenes, but I think that is also the case with many things. Again, like I don't want us to just be complacent like cattle that are just like, well, this is what they're putting the tro in front of us, so we'll just eat it, I guess I think that can be an advantage. I think with all of this, again, it's like for the wallets and for anyone building an app, you need to think about like, how does transparency become an advantage for you? Even for like, okay, let's talk about Chain Patrol for a second. We've had a lot of times, even new staff we've hired and even some customers coming to us from like other company, like from other brand protection providers, like, wow, you show me like all the nuts and bolts of how it works behind the scenes. Like I'm used to like a single page that gives me like 2 numbers and like a little graph and like a few things. And you're showing me literally how all the sauce works, and like, they're like, why? And we're like, well, do you like to see it? They're like, yeah, we like to see it. That's actually very helpful. I can actually improve it. I see there's an issue there and I can fix it with you together versus, having just a black box that I have zero control over. So to us, transparency is a competitive advantage, right? And so that helps a lot. And so I think, again, for privacy, for transparency to take off in wallets, it's one thing for people to ask for it. If more people ask, great. But also, like, I would like to see people more come up with the plans of how does this become such an advantage to such a level for that wallet or for the app being built that users will switch to it. Let's say there was another wallet that came in and said we have pure privacy, but we might not support this feature or that feature. If you could actually switch to that wallet and use it over the others, then like okay, then there's a reason to switch, and then that privacy has become a competitive advantage. So that's what people need to figure out for whatever app they're building or whatever system they're setting up.
I'm also like curious to see where this like plays out. Probably just a fad on Twitter for a day or two, and then it's just like no one cares anymore. Because if you think about it, like the adoption of tech, 7702, for example, still isn't supported in Rebby. So that's something I would personally say, hey, if you want to switch from Rebby to any other wallet, then it's because you still don't have 7702 support
Yeah.
like over a year
That
later.
one's been
for
puzzling to
example.
me because I've been hyped about 7702, and then like, but it's not just Rabby. It's like a bunch of wallets haven't
Yeah,
implemented
and many.
it. And
It's
I'm
not
like,
just Rebby, yeah.
like, I'm a bit puzzled personally. Like, I'd love to. I haven't talked to their product teams enough, so like, I'd love, maybe we should have like a wallet like product person on here one day.
We have it lined up. I can
Perfect.
spoil
Yeah,
that.
that's gonna be such a great conversation because like understanding the ins and outs of the wallet and like why certain product decisions are made, I think is so fascinating. And I want to ask them like, hey, why no 7702? Just like we should have that answered here. And so then there's a definitive like thing. Because a lot of wallets haven't supported, so I'm like a little bit puzzled, but I would like to know why.
Yeah, I think it probably has something to do also with these like internal delegation models that they are using. For example, at MetaMask, if you can only delegate to your own 772
Yeah, I think that's a
solutions.
tricky part of it. It's hard to build fully permissionlessly, right?
Yeah.
Like you basically have to put in a permission system in there, or else you're opening up to a whole new way, essentially blind signing all over again, where you can just delegate to anything, and now your money's gone again. So it's like we're all the way back to like the original big issues.
Yeah, and also Wintermute has like a statistic on this. I think it's like 60% of delegations in 7702 are crime related, which is like sweepers and all that. You gotta say like, what the hell is happening, man?
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah.
But it brings us back to the point where we said like, hey, these guys are the ones that adapt fastest, and they find out like ways to improve their game, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to end this episode. We have 10 minutes left or so on the latest scams or fake phishing stuff that I saw. And I saw a lot of these fake podcasts on the timeline. I think you, Nikita, Juan, you also saw them. Like Beacon Layer is one of these fake podcasts that has been going around and spreading around like crazy. They are DMing people and saying like, hey, you want to be part of the podcast? And it's not just like some random, hey, this is like Forbes or whatever, something that's not very believable. They actually like use clips from real podcasts and then repurpose them into their like scheme, in their phishing scheme, and present that on their homepage. And people think like, hey, this is a real podcast. I can see there are like founders from different protocols on there. It has to be legit. And then they fall for this stuff. I just want to stress out here that like impersonation is one thing, but all these fake credibility that they build through like platforms that aren't even theirs is also another like vector that you can get attacked by.
Yeah, I think just anything that gets people excited, anything that has credibility will be. We're just entering into the world where everything that looks legit or builds excitement will get somebody scammed. Like, and it's sad, but it's real, and that's what's happening on the internet, right? It's anything that people look to sources of authority, right? And they want to find things out there that are like legitimate, and I can follow this, and I can like, it's even like, I don't know, like I was just watching like a YouTube video on like some guy making protein bars today, and he just like put together a recipe. I'm like, oh, this guy looks legit. He has a bunch of followers, all this other stuff. So I'm like, I'm gonna try this recipe out. But honestly, like that recipe could be poisonous. But like I didn't even like think about it, like it looked legit enough, So like I'll do some checking before I make it and eat it. But like, it's just crazy how easily people can look at something and just be like, hey, just like, because the profile looks legit and has lots of followers, it must be legit, and therefore I will listen and follow whatever it tells me to do.
Yeah, I got to pass real quick, and then.
Yeah, I will add to that mostly in crypto, when you see like an invite to like a podcast, you need to double check lots of different things. Double check like who is the one sending you the invite, if he's sending that through the official domain of the company that pretty much hosts the podcast. If you also have like the direct contact from that company that you can verify, or someone that you can verify is that person that reached out to you. More importantly, I would say, of course, do this in like known platforms for the podcast, and also double check the domains. And I think one of the main problems of why people get too much message on this, because in some cases these are seen like free marketing, and it's also pretty well widespread about crypto that you can do podcasts. That is something like we are pretty used to that. And the problem is being something that a lot of crypto companies actually do, is that people think that this is completely safe and they're just gonna get exposure for free with no like too much time of their own commitment. So this, I think, makes easier to fall into these scams because they're also used to getting these kind of requests. So again, double check everyone that is sending you that message trying to get you to that podcast. But yeah, if it's Wimmy sending you the message, you can believe that's okay because he's not going to
I was surprised nobody turned down our invites yet and says like, no, I'm not coming on the podcast. Forget about
Yeah,
it.
no, it's good. We're building with this street cred, you know.
Nikita, you have to drop, I guess.
Yeah. It's good to be back. Excited to see everyone next week again. We're gonna have amazing episodes to come. So yeah, I'll let you do a bit of a teaser now as well, and but I'll have to drop off. So enjoy, everybody.
All right. Have a great one. Bye. So Juan, we too gonna stay like 5 minutes longer, I guess. And I just wanted to wrap this up with the fake sites that you just talked about, because we also have seen like a rise in these fake sites from hosted on Google, sites.google.com. These like are like toolboxes where everyone can basically just spin up a website and put something online, and people do think they are legit just because they use like the Google domain, but the TLDR of this is they are not, because we have seen like a lot of phishing emails in the past weeks where people receive like an email, for example, hey Juan, someone added, I don't know, like 123 as a backup contact for your contacts, and then maybe you start panicking and think like, oh my god, someone's like hacking into my account, because how would they be able to put like an email in there? And you click on the link, and then the link is hosted on the sites.google.com website, which is a legit website, but like any guy and girl can just build a website on there, and from there they just like want you to have some malicious like login authentication workloads and stuff like that. So you gotta be aware of these phishing emails. Usually like the best thing in emails is just don't answer if it's not like any like legit thing you're waiting for, I guess, because especially with crypto emails, we talked about this like a lot in the past. It's just like treat every email as a phishing email, as long as it's not proven otherwise, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. So lastly, we have a teaser for the Lights in Dark Rooms. The trailer for the documentary drops tomorrow. So everyone just put on your notifications for the Chain Patrol social media accounts, because we're going to be posting it across all these channels. Again, the teaser for the documentation around the scam compounds, people being forced and human trafficked into scamming other people, and this is the other side of the scams that most people don't see. We just think like, hey, it's some kind of like basement hacker trying to steal the funds, and he's like partying with champagne and all of that, but in the reality it's also like much darker, and people are again like human trafficked. They're being forced to scam other people's by these circles and all that. So the trailer will drop. It will hopefully bring some awareness to the topic. You guys did some excellent work on that, so I'm looking forward to that, and we're gonna be talking about this, I guess, in one of the later episodes coming along. Juan, thank you for taking the time. I think this was a great episode today. Lots to talk about, and looking forward for the next episodes. We're gonna have 2 next week, so stay tuned, everyone. Bye bye.
Amazing. Thank you.